We're going to talk a little bit about Tesla repairs. First, I want to apologize. A lot of our viewers were offended by the lip smacking in the last video. I'm going to come clean and tell you that I suffer from a very specific medical condition called optical rectal penitis. Optical rectal penitis is where you have a nerve in your eyeball crossed with a nerve in your asshole, and it gives you a shitty outlook on life. And one of the symptoms is profuse lip smacking. As I said, I want to talk about Tesla repairs, but to keep this at the usual 2 hours of length and to cause you to have to run it at 1.5 speed, I'll start out by saying that my lovely wife is a good Christian woman, plays the organ in our choir, and she is a glass witch. In 1996, I bought her a brand new white Jeep Grand Cherokee Eddie Power Edition, and man, did she look hot in that. Now, she only had that car for a little over 2 years, and I replaced the windshield 4 times. That means it had 5 windshields in it during the course of the 2.5 years she drove that car.
Yikes.
Every September 11th, I buy her 3 or sometimes 4 cases of Riedel wine glasses. And this is not in celebration of all the breaking glass and the crashing Twin Towers in New York in 2001. Rather, it's her birthday. And by her next birthday, she's going to need 2 or 3, maybe 4 more cases of wine glasses, because she really likes to drink wine out of nice glasses, and she breaks them all. The woman just, if she's in the room with glass, it shatters. If she looks at it, it shatters. And whenever it does, I just freeze. She knows how, with some sort of magic wet paper towels and something, how to get all the glass shards up unassisted. I've been, of course, in the last year driving the new Model 3, and while she drove the Model S all along, she's been pretty much driving this full time. The result was a huge crack in the windshield right there by the driver, probably where she looks. Elon Musk did not say. He promised with the words, "I promise you that Tesla service centers will never be a profit center." He says, "I don't believe this thing with the dealers where they make a huge amount of money on the repairs and give you the car. We're not going to make money on the service of these cars." So, James, you called up to St. Louis and got a bid from Tesla on what it would take to replace this windshield.
The total for service and parts was $1,334.75.
$1,334.75. That seemed like a lot. So you contacted somebody else. Who was it?
That was Safelite. Safelite Auto Glass.
Safelite. How does that go?
I think it's Safelite Repair, Safelite Replace.
And we didn't really want them to repair it, did we?
We did not, no.
We wanted them to replace it.
Yeah, because it was longer than a dollar bill, I think they said. If it's shorter than a dollar bill, they can fill it. If it's longer, they have to replace the whole thing.
And they're pretty much experts on how long a dollar bill is. And trust me, Safelite Corporation is very profitable, and they're a franchise operation, and all their franchisees are very profitable. And what was their magic number to replace a Tesla windshield?
Their total was $750.43.
Wow. So $1,334 and change,
Yep.
or $750 and change.
Yep.
That's not very close.
And
That's $585 difference. Now, nationally, you will find that if you take a car to a mechanic, your local automobile repair facility, you'll save about 34% over the cost of taking your car to a dealer. In the case of Tesla, it's pushing the hell out of 50%.
as well as the repair, we called them and they said they had to give us, we had to give them, the Tesla dealership, at least a week to get all the parts and everything in. And we called Safe Auto, or Safe Light.
Safe Light replace, Safe Light repair, Safe Light repair, Safe Light repair.
We called them and we got the last one in their warehouse. And we were able to meet our appointment Monday at 11 a.m. So.
And this was all researched on Friday.
Yes, sir.
And how long did it take them to replace that windshield?
I'd say it took them an hour and 30 minutes. The guy in Carbondale, the Carbondale Safe Light, he said he did a Tesla before, so he kind of knew everything going into it. So
he'd already done one.
yep, he did one about 2 years ago. So he was
pretty much an expert.
Pretty much. But yeah, I had to teach him. There was a new tech in there who didn't really know how to drive a Tesla, so I had to give him a little education on that. And then they didn't know how to open the trunk. And I was just like, oh, it's easy, guys. So.
I expressed to you, our viewers, and to Elon Musk 4 years ago that this repairability issue was going to make the cars uninsurable. At that time, Teslas were so new there was no basis in the actuarial tables, and so they simply insured them based on the price of the car. Right now, we have insurers who are kind of redlining Teslas. We don't want to take care of you because you drive a Tesla. And all the others are increasing the rates. Now, why is that? Part of it is fairly understandable. The Model S, anyway, is almost entirely aluminum, and simply the cost of repairing aluminum bodies is higher than steel bodies. The rest of it gets to be problematic. The electronics in the car make it somewhat difficult to work on. It should make it easier to work on. And in fact, both the Model S and the Model 3 have a diagnostic screen that they can call up on that big, expensive display in the middle of the car and show you just exactly how all the systems are operating. Now, that may take some interpretation, but you don't have to go through the learning curve because they're not going to give you access to a tool to diagnose your car. It's already in the car you paid for. Now, they take the cars and they wreck them. And part of the insurance game is to then, through an auctioneer like Copart, recover the cost of the total car by having the carcass auctioned off. And the price that will go for at auction is based on the ability of people to take these salvaged cars, repair them, and put them back on the road at a profit. If they can't do that, it's difficult to get bidders. The rest of it is from cars that can't be repaired, where they can part them out and sell those parts at a generous discount from what they would cost from the dealer. And so, do-it-yourself owners and auto mechanics can obtain used parts from the salvage market and make the repairs much less expensively that way. The only problem is there's nobody repairing Teslas and that because they don't know how. And they don't have access to those advanced electronics that you need from in order to troubleshoot the car. Mechanically, they're not hard to work on. Swapping out a drive unit is an hour. Swapping out a battery is an hour. Swapping out most of the components in the car, and understand it has a fifth of the components that are normally in a car. But they're highly evolved technical components. In going from the Model S to the Model 3, Tesla has actively taken steps to further complicate that and prevent you from working on it. The drive unit has to be cryptographically married to the master control unit. A lot of these parts do. And so without the approved software and a connection to Tesla's mothership, you can't replace a drive unit or many of the components in the Model 3 in the way you even could with the Model S. We're going the wrong direction. And security for you has nothing to do with it. This is a by design plan to make the car more dependent on Tesla for service, which they've already demonstrated they will reach new highs of ridiculous for the privilege of repair. And this has to be stopped. Mr. Musk, we're not stupid. If you want to maintain your leadership position and advance it, you will make these cars more open and more repairable, or someone will offer us an option, and I, for one, will be prone to take it. A lot of the value in a car is the tribal knowledge that's available on how to repair them and the availability of less expensive parts. Right now, he is suffering exactly, not kind of, not similarly, but exactly what I predicted 4 years ago, and is actually talking about self-insuring and offering Tesla insurance. You've moved the problem across the room. Now you're going to suffer the loss intrinsic in doing the repairs. And so you're stirring the things around on the top of your desk without ever dealing with the problem. The car should be more repairable and less expensive to repair. I'm on board with it being aluminum. I like that because of the lighter weight. Now, the Model 3 is a mix of aluminum and steel, where the Model S is mostly aluminum. But they're still, having built a lot of EVs, these are heavy cars to be able to go as far as they go with that kind of range. So anything you can do as, what was the guy's name? Started Motorola and did the Learjet, Bill. Well, anyway, built-in likeness is a good design principle. And I'm willing to take the hit for that, but not deliberate acts of sabotage by the manufacturer, not deliberately inconveniencing me in any efforts to maintain it. That should be against the law. It's my car. I know you think it's your car, but at the point where I sign the check, for $107,500. There was a little transfer going on here. That car and that diagnostic screen belonged to me, not you. I'll be happy to consult with you about it if you care for a discussion, but it's mine. I bought it and I own it. And if you have a way of preventing me from using it, you're in violation of our agreement. And you can't make up your own. These are regulated by the United States of America. And, but it doesn't matter. I can sue you and enforce this and get a lot of fame for doing so. And I don't mind. I love the drama of the court, and I can afford it. But why are you doing it? You're shooting yourself in the foot. The reason Volkswagen became the largest automotive manufacturer in the world, they started with the Bug and the microbus. And very quickly, because they made the information freely available on how to repair it and had difficulty providing service centers in many areas of the world. And I had a gentleman from Bangalore, India here yesterday wanting to know how to learn to work on Model 3s because there are no service centers in India. They made the information available, and the tribal knowledge of how to work on a Volkswagen soon became worldwide and universal. And a thriving aftermarket in third-party parts and add-ons for the car made it a very popular car to do something very different from what the manufacturer originally intended. Now, I know it's high-tech, and you think you're the only one that can deal with high-tech. You're not, and I'm not. The entire country was quite befuddled by computer-controlled ECUs and solid-state ignitions when they were introduced in the early 70s for about 15 minutes. They got over it, and that became part of the tribal knowledge of dealing with a modern vehicle. And that would happen again with your cars if you would simply allow it. And what I'm seeing is the most selfish, self-centered, and ill-begotten concept I've ever heard. It's harming you more than it's harming me. I can still go to Safelite.
Yep.
Safelite repair, Safelite replace. Safelite replace, Safelite.
Who is that? You got it.
How do they sing that?
You got it. Yeah.
Come on, you do it, James. You got it.
Safe flight repair, safe flight replace.
There you go. We really pride ourselves on making it easy for you to get your windshield fixed. With SafeLight, you can see exactly when we'll be there, saving you time for what you love most.
And we saved $584 by doing that. That's actually inexcusable. There is no reason for it, particularly given your promise. You say so damn much, either learn to keep your mouth shut or do what you said you're going to do. And that's all I've got to say about that.
It's a review.
Little flare up of my optical rectal penitis. Okay, I've got a Winova Android tablet here. We're going to show you, we've learned a little bit about PID files and dash layouts, and we have prepared a set that we'll keep updated on the store website in the detailed description for the Tesla Model 3 OBDII CAN adapter. Let's go to File Manager, and in the upper right hand corner there are three dots. You want to say I can hide hidden files, or I can show hidden files. We want to show them. When we do show them, I don't know why Torque places them in a hidden directory, but they do, and it's called .torque. And if we select that, we have a number of subfiles. Two we're interested in. One is dashboards, and there is where you want to copy your Tesla Model 3 dash file into that directory. And if we go back to Torque Extended PIDs, you want to copy the file Tesla Model 3.csv into that. Let me show you that file a little bit. It's kind of interesting. This is the format of an extended PIDs file where you can add PIDs. And here we have at the bottom highlighted Tesla torque foot-pounds. That is, you notice I put a period in front of each of the titles. That makes them show up first in the list. And I like that. So we did it that way. Tesla torque foot-pounds, in quotes, is the title that will appear on the extended PID list when you make a display. The next item separated by a comma and in quotes is torque. That will be the title of the display centered in the upper front end of it. The next element, what have I done here? Nothing. I wanted to be colon. Make this keyboard go away. So we're down here at 01A6. 01 is the PID mode, and A6 is the PID we're using. We found a bunch up A1 through A whatever that are often used for oxygen sensors, but not really used for very much. That's followed by the equation that we use on the thing. We've kind of had a breakthrough. We get a lot of problems with converting data. CAN only has 8 bytes, of course, and can only hold integers. And so the normal way to do that is to multiply the number you want to transmit by 100. So that carries 2 digits of decimal resolution by multiplying it by 100. If the other end you divide it by 100, well, then we store it into an exponent to get back our 2 digits of decimal resolution. Well, if you then cast that into another 8-bit or 16-bit integer, you tend to truncate it. And it doesn't really even round it, it just truncates it. Or you got to multiply it by 100 again. Anyway, there's losses all the way through that. We found out torque handles float 32s, so we just transmit the 4 bytes of our float value using Torque's function. After the equation, we have our minimum value. After the minimum value, in this case 0 foot-pounds, and then you have your maximum value. We have 300, and then you have your units. That's what's printed in the bottom center of the dial, indicating what it is you're measuring. And then the header, that's usually automatic, but we went ahead and specified 7EO. That's a type of PID transaction. It's the most common type. And then start diagnostic and stop diagnostic. I'm not too sure what that's about, but we haven't used it. And so that's kind of, so you can see we've added a whole series that will appear, and I want to show you how that works. First, let's load all this. Put our 2 files in there. And I'm going to go to the main menu for Torque. And there's a little gear down here on the left. I'm going to click it and select Settings. And nothing I want appears here. You have to scroll down. Manage extra PIDs and sensors I select. I'm going to clear out my list here of everything I've got. But I can get it back by adding a predefined set. And I'm going to select the Tesla Model 3 from that. These are all those PIDs that were in that CSV file. And you can see Tesla battery current is PID 01A3. Unit is amps. It's from 500 positive to minus 1,000 negative. And the equation is float 32 ABCD. The 4 bytes we transmit in the PID. And so we've loaded our PIDs into the program. If we go to the real-time display is where our screen is, and there's a gear in the lower right-hand corner. And if I select that, it has, as the last item, layout settings. I'm going to select that and say import layout. And you get a list of whatever's in that dashboard's directory. I'm going to select Tesla Model 3 dash. Now you notice all my gauges are kind of crooked and swapped around. But I can move the tablet around a little bit and they come right into play. So here's my screens. Up here I've got power and horsepower, battery, current, and torque, and RPM. So I can look at them. This is actually what I watch while I'm driving. And down here is an extra space. I can tap on that and get an add display. And I'm going to put a dial needle. And here's the magic of our PIDs by putting that period. This is a whole list of PIDs that Torque has available, from their standard PIDs, their internal PIDs, all that. You can see a lot of them are fuel trim. Well, we don't need fuel trim. We're an electric car. So we can replace those. But instead, I added a bunch that begin with a period, so they're up front here. So I'm going to select, Tesla motor temperature. And I'm going to make that medium. And there is my stator temperature. And no data right now. And it goes from 0 to 100 degrees centigrade. And I can go change that display configuration. And change the display type and go down here and select this. And now it's stator C, still with no data, but a square. And I can go change that, change the size, and make it larger. And move it around, and so forth. So that's how you use, and it makes it a lot easier to have all the Tesla Model 3 PIDs up in the front. Mac laptop. And I have SavvyCAN version 1.97 up, and this is my log screen. I'm not connected to anything right now, but I have loaded a file I captured an hour ago called CAN Bridge Drive, and I'm looping it, and I'm transmitting it right now, but I don't have any connection. Let's delete this connection and add a new one. I'm going to go to network, And it kind of fills this in for me. 192.168.010 is for our adapter, and now we're connected. And I go over here, and I've got this. You can change the speed here. 1 is kind of the fastest without burst rate. And these are all the messages, CAN message IDs that were captured when I did the drive. I can check those on and off. If I want to turn one of them off during playback, or turn on. Actually, I use this in CAN definitions and things to turn off all of them, but the 2 or 3 that I'm working with in a lot of cases, to make sure a device doesn't need those messages, and that way I get down to the ones that it does. In this case, I'm going to leave them all checked. I've got it on a loop, and I've got 771,000 frames. One of our Blue Angels jets at the air show just flew over. And I'm going to turn this on, and it'll start transmitting these wireless connection to the ESP32 OBDII adapter. And so I can play back this drive that I took earlier today and captured in order to show it on my Android device and get that going for development. This is just a test mode. You have to turn on allow SavvyCAN in the adapter, or it won't let you make one of these connections, and that's because you don't want somebody else making connections and feeding you CAN data while you drive. It'd be kind of a security thing, so you want that left off unless you're testing like this. And it can be interesting to play back a drive. It's actually quite enjoyable, and you learn a lot while you're driving. A lot of times you don't have time to look at all that, and a lot of things are going on simultaneously. So that's the deal. So we're set up with playback on SavvyCAN. We have a connection that is a wireless connection to a port on the adapter. And here's our regular log screen, auto scroll and so forth, showing the CAN messages and their values actually as we send them. Here's the data bytes in those messages. If you're intensely interested, I'm just wanting to play a drive capture back so I can watch it on the Android tablet. We're on the Android laptop. I'm going to go to settings or gear, check my Wi-Fi. I seem to be connected to the ESP32 OBDII, and that's cool. And I'm going to go to Torque and call up my screen. It's checking. It thinks it's connected to the ECU okay. And this is our display. And again, we're playing back a drive I took an hour ago across the Mississippi River Bridge and displaying the data on the thing. I have SavvyCAN connected to our ESP32 adapter wirelessly and playing back the data I had logged in doing the drive. But I'm not driving now, I'm sitting in the shop, and we're playing that back over SavvyCAN from a laptop and watching that data on the Android tablet. I've just added a torque foot-pounds, as you saw in the description of the PIDs, and here it is displayed next to the Newton meters, and these are all pretty rational looking values. I have to go back and correct that. 0.76 is 0.76023 or something. more accurate value. But I'll copy that in a little bit. But at 0.76, it's doing about foot-pounds to Newton meters. And our stator temperature is up to 33 degrees. Our inverter's at 32. The odometer, 3374.7. It does not update very often, about every half mile. And so that's a little disappointment, I would think. But the update is in the Tesla CAN. It just doesn't do it very much. So we're at about 2.5 miles an hour. But we're coming up, and you see we're displaying negative as a current value. In fact, I can go up to 1,000 amps on this display of current, and then the positive current is to about 500. I think of positive current from a battery's perspective. You're adding current into the battery. And when you're driving, you're discharging current out of the battery, and so it's a negative value. And of course, we can discharge much more than we can charge. Here I am at 70 miles an hour, but slowing down here pretty shortly, and I'll be putting positive current back into the battery. That'll read as negative power, and torque is torque without reference to a polarity, so is horsepower. But you can see during accelerations, we use current, and our battery voltage goes down somewhat dramatically. And then, of course, when we recharge, I think there I went past the end of the drive, and we're looping back around to me sitting here in the shop, getting ready to leave, and starting to record. And as I say, I've got it on loop, but you can see already we've posted a current of almost 600 amps. I have this little red tick mark here. Power was over 200 kilowatts. Our torque was over 350 Newton meters. And we reached about 255 or 255 horsepower during that drive over the bridge. Our stated charge is 90%. We have 69.8 kilowatt hours left in the battery, remaining kilowatt hours. So we're just sitting there, you can see the little green dots flashing. That is PID coitus. And then we're reaching a connection and getting a PID data every time that flashes. And so it's successful. And it's kind of one of the ways you can tell things are working. So that's our display showing data as it happened. Not as it's happening now. We're actually playing back a recording and displaying it. It can be very interesting to compare things that way. Here's some bigger dials. Right now I'm playing with torque and torque foot-pounds, and torque Newton meters. And you can kind of see what's going on there. This is data coming across. My stator temperature, 26 degrees. That's how you can tell it was early in the drive. So that's kind of an update on our work. This has turned into quite a little busy box. I said it was a Mr. Potato Head for geeks, and it has turned into quite a time alligator. But I'm extraordinarily pleased with the results. If you drive down the road looking at this thing, you look over at the Model 3, a big screen display, deluxe, and it looks hyper lame. Little bitty thing for state of charge that gives you miles left or percent left, your choice, in 4-point type and about the size of one of the black river flies we have here in Missouri right now. They're called buffalo gnats, and they hurt. And on here, of course, I've got 9 ways to nothing to tell what's going on with my battery. It's I've got the voltage, the stated charge, and the amount of remaining kilowatts that I can view quite easily. And so that's kind of what's going on here. But I really like the work Ian Hawkins did with this Torque program. But like many powerful programs, it takes a while to get in it and learn what's going on. The biggest breakthrough is we can make up our own PIDs and do them the way we want to, and they have a pretty rich set of equation symbols to decode them. And now we can do full 32-bit floating point numbers. It gets us to a lot better precision. The first versions were not terribly accurate. Now we're still making available to any program that requests it some of the standard PIDs that we can fill from the CAN data on the Model 3 bus. We haven't changed any of that or taken any of it away. There are some devices like simple heads-up display stuff that plug into the actual J1962 port that may need standard PIDs, but I don't have much interest in them anymore for our Android display because we can at the same time make available the Tesla Model 3 extended PIDs. The way PIDs work is the device sends a request for your PID list. What PIDs do you support? And you send a series of messages that have a bit field indicating what PIDs your car supports. And then it can request PIDs that are active in that list. That's how it works. So we'll advertise it as active, but if you don't, your device doesn't request a specific PID, it's never sent, and it doesn't clog up the connection. And in this way, devices can select different PIDs that they want to examine. You might have a device that only shows RPM, and it only requests the RPM PID. But there might be several versions of that available, and it's looking to see if you support this particular version. And so that's how the transaction goes. We also transmit the full CAN messages out the port, either wirelessly or through the J1962. That's a lot of work for a little processor to monitor 1800 frames per second on the Tesla Model 3, bridge them out another port, and monitor for PIDs and wireless activity. And so we're getting at the point where you'll get most of the CAN messages, but it's asking a little much of the microprocessor when you do that. But you can do it, and what that allows you to do is plug in like an ELM 327 Bluetooth device, which we're not supporting Bluetooth in the thing, but we can pass all the CAN traffic to it. And some of those have newer protocols. I think Scan My Tesla uses some newer Elm 327 Bluetooth protocols to set filters and get certain values passed through directly. But we're not doing that. I'm about out of battery here. I don't have it plugged in the car. I do. And so we have that ability, but I would advise, unless you need it, turning it off, and you'll just get a lot better performance on everything. But we can pass through the full CAN traffic onto the J1962 port and out the wireless port as well. That can be done. But you don't need to do it for Torque. Torque's just a PID type program. And I think as much more graphic and visual than the Scan My Tesla type technical data list, which, can be very useful for troubleshooting and so forth. I'm seeing this more as a driving display, and the more I have it parked next to my Tesla Model 3 display, the lamer the Tesla Model 3 display looks. So that's what we're playing with right now. We'll have the files for the PIDs and for the dash layout on our web store in the description for the device, freely available to download, and we'll keep those updated as we make changes. And once this thing's kind of working, it's working. But that's for right now. We're doing a lot of work on it, and those are changing almost every day. The adapter itself, we're also changing the software quite often, but you can get on that with a laptop and simply type in update, and if you have your local access point, SSID and name in there, it'll go to our Amazon account and download the latest software and reboot into it automatically, and that makes it a nice feature, mostly for us, in that it just makes it easier to upgrade people's software if they're having problems, or if they just want to have the latest. We're adding features and PIDs every week. So that's our Torque display. I'm pretty excited. We recently experimentally cleaned all the panels from one of our Solar Edge inverters, leaving the other ones dirty, and compared the outputs. We were astonished to find a 15% increase in the clean panels. And so now we're cleaning off all the rest of the panels, mopping them first and then hosing them off with a power washer. The other issue we're learning about is tilt. We have a flat roof, and we use a Dynarax mounting system that tilts the panels to about 10 degrees. Wind loading is kind of a factor, but we're finding that insufficient. Ideally, we're at 37 degrees latitude. Ideally, in the summer, you would want to subtract 15 degrees to that and have them mounted at about 22 degrees. And in the winter, when the sun is lower on the horizon, you would want to add 15 degrees to that, 37 degrees latitude, and get a 52 degree angle. We're measuring 9 degrees right now on the Dynarax, and we've made some Unirac extenders to simply raise the rear edge or the north edge of the panels up to get about 33 degrees. And we're going to do that on all the in-phase panels and not on the solar edge panels. In this way, the in-phase will put out more in the winter and the solar edge more in the summer. The attempt here is to flatten the 4.5 times greater power output we get in June over December. And we'd like to get a little more in December and a little less in June. And so the solution is to raise the north edge of the panels a few degrees on some of the panels to try to flatten that annual arc.
So we need to get it a little longer. Is that better?
Yeah, I just zoomed in on it more.
Okay. 33 degrees. Alright.
So a little longer then?
Okay, just a brief wrap up. I'm here with the PowerSafe 100 that James Grosh and Denerja de Silva have assembled for Mr. Wayne DeVeers Mr. Wayne Reveres in Tuxedo Park, New York, has ordered, and we've been running the shop on it for several days, and it's testing extremely well. Right now we're at 53.5% state of charge, and we're charging from the in-phase array at 6.23 kilowatts. And so it's working very well. We've got the latest software in it. He's also ordered a spare Signier 15 kilowatt inverter and a spare BMS controller, as he's going to place this on an island in Antigua called Little Hog Cay, which he owns. And this will provide electrical power for his island. Just to review, this is the PowerSafe 100. Ovana. This is our Signier 15 kilowatt inverter. 20 Tesla Model S 5.5 kilowatt modules. They're in a 2S 10P configuration. And we have 2 in series for 48 volts, and we have 10 pairs of that. That inverter can put out 45 kilowatts for a few seconds, and 15 kilowatts continuously. And those batteries are more than able to do that. We found that heating and cooling of them just isn't an issue. We're using a fraction of the power ability of these cells. In a car, they can be called on for 1200 amps. Here they could be called on for 300 amps, but they're in parallel instead of series. So that's 30 amps for 2 modules in series. It's actually trivial for what they were designed to provide. So these should last a very long time, and heating and cooling simply isn't necessary, even in Antigua. And we have an input-output box on both sides with a Midnight Solar metal oxide varestor surge suppressor, one of the best in the business, and we've got it coming and going. He's probably not going to have a grid, but he might have a generator that he would cut in, and I don't know why. 100 kilowatt hours is a plenty, and he lives in a very sunny part of the world, or he will be operating this in a very sunny part of the world. New York, he might run out of battery. Antigua, I'm guessing not, unless he's running 50 kilowatt AM radio station off of it. It's just not likely. So the boys have done a great job putting this together. We get a little slicker with each one. They are quite a bit of work. This one's been in work for 6 weeks. But they've gotten it down to a pretty good process. And I think he's going to be very happy with it. He reiterated today, for the several-th time, his invitation for me to come to Little Hog Cay in Antigua. It's difficult for me to explain to people that my travel radius is now about 450 yards from here to the house and from the house to the shop. I smoke about 30 packs of cigarettes a day, and I'm insufferable to be around by anybody. So he doesn't precisely want me on Little Hog Cay. But we may see if one of the boys want to go over there and help with the installation. I don't know. It could be nice to have some video from it. In any event, this is ready to go. And so we're going to send it. But before we do, I want to weigh it and measure it. We're getting a number of inquiries for this, and I suppose I need to have a proper manual for the thing as a device. We've got manuals for everything that's in it, but and listing the specifications and so forth. So I'm going to ask them to weigh it, and we're going to start crating it up. Let's take a look, see what we come up with.
It's good. Show it to the camera.
Stand in front of it and read to it.
Okay, we have the power safe. This is just it on the pallet. It weighed 2,037 pounds. Height was 82 and a half from the bottom of the wheel to the top of the hooks. The width was 51 inches. The depth was 34 inches. Inside the base, we had 2 sheets of 3/4 inch plywood cut 30 inches by 96, 8 2x4s at 96 inches, 8 1x4s at 60 inches, 8 2x4s at 8 inches, 20 2x4s at 60 inches, 4 6-inch lags, and 10 5-inch lags. And that completes the base palleting of the power safe. So we're getting ready to box it up, send it to Antigua. We got a little space back here for fill up. We'll put compression packaging and quite a bit of foam in there. So, Wayne, Roovers, coming your way.
Despite the current frenzy of anti-Tesla noise, the company continues to crush on almost all fronts. Here we see construction on Tesla's Shanghai factory location in China proceeding at an astonishing pace. In 3 months, it's gone from muddy ground with weeds to basically being on the roof. This is a 100% Tesla-owned plant, an anomaly in China of epic proportions, and potentially an enormous move if the China trade agreement is not forthcoming. The mind space of the Tesla Model 3, without benefit of a single advertising dollar, is also astonishing. This past 2 weeks, Tesla successfully completed acquisition of Maxwell Technologies. It's now a done deal and brings Tesla a step change in battery manufacturing technology that could potentially double their already commanding lead worldwide in batteries. This is extremely important. Whoever makes the best battery, the cheapest, wins. With Maxwell's much faster dry electrode process, Tesla just turned a lead into a moat. They can't be touched for a decade. And this isn't a theory. They've already produced batteries at Maxwell in test runs. Tesla also did a capital raise after Musk had earlier announced they wouldn't need one at all. What was astonishing about this was the ease of execution. On a Tuesday, he raised his hand and said he'd like to raise $2 billion. By Thursday, it was closed at $2.7 billion. Talk about a good credit rating. But the Tesla stock price is down a cringy 30% since the first of the year, and convertible bonds are trading at 81 cents on the dollar, yielding an incredible 9% interest at this point. The stock hit $188 this week, when it had traded at about $380 at one point last year. We at EVTV predicted the stock would reach $1,500 per share by February 2023. We stayed with that, although it is starting to look quite conservative at this point. Why is it going down? The answer is a bit of a rigged game. Tesla has less than 1,000 shareholders, 10 big ones and 990 others with 100 shares each. T. Rowe Price was Tesla's second largest shareholder. Elon Musk himself had about 19% of the stock in the company, but T. Rowe Price, a fund manager with over $1 trillion under management, owned 10.12% as of last September with 8.9 million shares. By March 31st of this year, it had pared that down to 1.7 million shares, with 6 funds selling off 100% of their holdings. Predictably, this has caused dozens of mindless Buffalo analysts to also jump over the cliff with them, including analysts that have been in the Tesla bullish camp. There doesn't appear to be any particular underlying cause. The Apple acquisition of Tesla. This has risen from the ashes as Tesla valuation falls below $40 billion. And several are claiming to have first proposed an Apple acquisition of Tesla. Understand there was nothing close about it. EVTV was absolutely the first to describe the theoretical merger by a lot, although several analysts picked it up directly from us and immediately chimed in back then 6 years ago. The concept is now re-emerging as Apple continues Project Titan, and they have several poached ex-Tesla employees on the project, including their past head of drivetrains. The scale of this thing is natural. Apple has $250 billion in cash, but it's starved for blue sky. They completely dominate every technology they are in, but are finding growth from here extremely difficult, as I predicted nearly 7 years ago when I still held a substantial block of Apple stock. The scenario goes like this. Apple is cash rich but starved of blue sky growth opportunities and totally lacking in visionary leadership subsequent to the death of Steve Jobs. Tesla has not just entree but dominance in electric vehicles and solar battery storage, where Apple has no presence at all. And Musk also owns most of SpaceX, which this past week launched 60 communication satellites in a single launch on the way to a space-based global internet low Earth orbit constellation. Apple should acquire both SpaceX and Tesla, but the real acquisition is Musk himself. He is the Steve Jobs component Apple most needs. For less than $100 billion, Apple can return to its preeminent position as the largest growth company in history, with a leftover $150 billion to energize that growth. Understand that the $250 billion in cash is not a sign of success. It's a public admission of incompetence. They don't know what to do with the money. And nobody knows how to get rid of cash better than Elon Musk.